When detectives confronted Sarah Mitchell with a voice analysis, she froze. At first, she laughed it off. That's ridiculous. I was Emily's best friend. But as investigators laid out the bank records, the burner phone connections, and her presence near Emily's house the night of the murder, Sarah's composure cracked. Her hands shook. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You don't understand. I didn't have a choice. Over hours of interrogation, Sarah slowly began to unravel. She admitted that Ashford Global, the corporation Emily had been investigating, had approached her months earlier. They had discovered Emily was digging into their fraudulent accounts, and they needed someone close to her to monitor what she knew. They paid me, Sarah whispered, tears streaking her face, just to keep tabs on her. That's all it was supposed to be, just watching, reporting. But when Emily uncovered the Whisper's contract, Sarah's role escalated. She was told to retrieve the files. If she didn't, Ashford Global threatened to ruin her life. Financially, professionally, even physically. I went to her house that night, Sarah admitted. I wanted to scare her, to make her stop. But I swear I didn't kill her. Sarah's confession seemed damning, but detectives spotted a hole. If Sarah hadn't killed Emily, then why was her voice captured outside the house hours before Emily's death? Why did her financial records show a $250,000 payment deposited just 2 days later? And most importantly, if she didn't kill Emily, who did? Meanwhile, Mark Renshaw was spiraling in custody. Word of Sarah's arrest had spread, but Mark continued insisting he had nothing to do with the murder. Yes, I watched her. Yes, I loved her. But I wasn't the one who ended her life. I would have protected her. He seemed genuine, even pathetic. Yet detectives couldn't shake the image of Emily's face on those tapes, the obsessive notes on his walls. Mark might not have killed her, but his obsession had made her vulnerable. As the story hit national headlines, Crestwood transformed into a media circus. The narrative was explosive. A young lawyer uncovers billion-dollar corruption. Her best friend betrays her for corporate money. And now she's dead. But beneath the media frenzy, investigators noticed something alarming. They were being watched. Cars parked near the station with tinted windows. Unknown numbers calling detectives' personal phones. One officer swore his home computer had been hacked. Ashford Global wasn't just a corporation, it was a machine, and it had no intention of letting Emily's secrets destroy it. Pressed further, Sarah made a chilling admission. I wasn't alone that night. The room fell silent. Sarah said she had gone to Emily's to confront her, to retrieve the files. But when she arrived, someone else was already there. A man. Someone Emily knew. Sarah claimed she heard them arguing. Emily shouted, "You can't scare me. I'll expose all of you." Then came the sound of a struggle. Sarah panicked, fled into the night, and never looked back. She swore she didn't see his face. But she remembered one thing. His voice. Low, threatening. The same voice Daniel Reeves had described. Detectives compared her account with Daniel's. Both described a male voice. Both placed someone else inside Emily's house that night. But if it wasn't Daniel, and it wasn't Mark, who was it? The answer came in a shocking discovery. Forensics pulled fresh evidence from Emily's flash drive. Buried among the contracts and emails was a string of personal communications between Emily and a source she had been meeting secretly. That source was not Sarah, not Mark, not Daniel. It was Detective Alan Grayson, one of the lead investigators on her murder case. Detective Grayson had been in contact with Emily for weeks before her death. He had fed her inside information about Ashford Global's reach within law enforcement. He had warned her to keep her files hidden. But the most damning message was dated the night she died. Don't trust anyone, not even me. The realization hit like a thunderclap. The man investigating Emily's murder was also tied to the case she had been building. A man sworn to uphold the law may have been the one who silenced her. When analysts revealed that Detective Alan Grayson had been in secret contact with Emily Carter, the investigation imploded. Grayson wasn't just a detective. He was a decorated officer, 20 years on the force, respected in Crestwood and beyond. To his colleagues, he was the last person they'd ever suspect. But the messages recovered from Emily's flash drive painted a darker picture. He hadn't just been warning her about corruption. He had been feeding her information from inside the police department itself. The final message, "Don't trust anyone, not even me," was damning. The lead investigator, Captain Laura Denton, faced an impossible decision. Arresting a fellow officer risked tearing the department apart. But letting suspicion linger was worse. Quietly, she ordered a covert background check on Grayson. Bank records, travel history, phone logs. What they found was devastating. Over $500,000 had been funneled into Grayson's accounts over the past 2 years. Several deposits came directly from shell corporations tied to Ashford Global. The burner phone Emily had been texting, it pinged off cell towers near Grayson's home. The evidence was undeniable. Detective Alan Grayson wasn't just a dirty cop. He was a corporation's inside man. For days, the department kept the findings under wraps, working carefully to build an airtight case. They reviewed every report Grayson had filed since Emily's death. Subtle manipulations emerged, misleading timelines, evidence delayed, questions never asked. It was clear Grayson had been steering the investigation away from himself. But the one thing he hadn't expected was Emily's foresight. By saving the files on her flash drive, she had created a trail directly to him. Piecing together the timeline, detectives reconstructed Emily's final hours. Around 10:30 p.m., Emily texted Grayson, "I have the files." No more whispers. At 11 p.m., Daniel Reeves arrived outside her house and overheard Emily arguing with a man. At 11:15 p.m., Sarah Mitchell whispered threats outside the window before fleeing when she realized Emily wasn't alone. By 12:30 a.m., Emily Carter was dead. The evidence suggested only one conclusion. Detective Alan Grayson had entered Emily's house that night, and he had silenced her forever. On May 23rd, a sting operation was set. Detectives planned to lure Grayson into custody quietly, without alerting the press. But Grayson was no fool. The moment 2 plainclothes officers approached his car outside the station, he bolted. What followed was a heart-pounding chase through Crestwood's quiet streets. Grayson, desperate and cornered, led officers on a high-speed pursuit before abandoning his car and disappearing into the woods. When police searched his vehicle, they found a duffel bag packed with cash, passports, and a handgun. Grayson had been preparing to run. The revelation shattered Crestwood. To learn that Emily's suspected killer was the very detective leading her case was almost too much to process. Reporters swarmed the town. Headlines screamed betrayal. Emily's neighbors wept openly on camera. For Mark Renshaw and Daniel Reeves, the news was almost vindicating. Both men had been branded killers by public opinion, only to be overshadowed by a deeper corruption. But the story wasn't over. While searching Grayson's abandoned home, investigators uncovered a locked safe in his basement. Inside, they found files, photographs, contracts, pay slips, all linking Grayson to Ashford Global. One file in particular stood out. It was a contract labeled termination. The target listed, Emily Carter. The date, May 16th. It was a smoking gun. Grayson hadn't killed Emily in a moment of rage. It had been planned, ordered, executed. But buried beneath the files was something no one expected. A photograph. It showed Emily standing beside Grayson. Not in fear, not under duress. Smiling. The picture was dated 3 weeks before her death. Emily Carter hadn't just been investigating Ashford Global. She had been working with Detective Grayson. The manhunt for Detective Grayson. His desperate escape attempts. How investigators uncovered the chain of command above him. The corporation's tightening grip. A new revelation that twists the story even deeper. The night Detective Alan Grayson vanished into the woods, Crestwood descended into chaos. Helicopters buzzed overhead. Search dogs combed the forest. SWAT teams fanned out across the county. But Grayson was a seasoned officer. He knew the back roads, the hidden paths, the blind spots in patrol coverage. For 3 days, he stayed one step ahead of the dragnet. Every hour he remained free was another wound to the department's credibility. How could they convince the public Emily's killer would be brought to justice when their own detective had slipped through their fingers. Fear gripped Crestwood. Parents locked their doors at sundown. Businesses closed early. Every rustle in the dark felt like Grayson's shadow creeping closer. The media branded him the phantom cop. Headlines screamed, "Trusted detective turns killer," and the betrayal in Crestwood. But for Emily's family, the circus meant nothing. All they wanted was answers. Why had Emily trusted him? Why had he turned on her? While tactical teams hunted Grayson, analysts focused on his finances. The $500,000 in deposits was only the beginning. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, wire transfers from London, payments that coincided exactly with key moments in Emily's investigation. The money told a clear story. Grayson wasn't acting alone. He was a pawn in something far larger. And buried in the transactions was a name. Richard Hale, a board member at Ashford Global, a man with direct authority, and billions to lose if Emily exposed him. Investigators traced a private jet owned by Ashford Global. Records showed it had landed in Pennsylvania the very day before Emily's death. On board, Richard Hale. Phone logs revealed multiple calls between Hale and Grayson in the days leading up to the murder. One, chillingly, was placed just 2 hours before Emily was killed. The picture became clear. Hale had given the order. Grayson had carried it out. And Sarah Mitchell, Emily's best friend, had been caught in the middle as a reluctant accomplice. On the 4th night of the manhunt, Grayson slipped up. A farmer outside Crestwood spotted movement in his barn. When deputies arrived, they found evidence Grayson had been hiding there. Food wrappers, a sleeping bag, and a half-burned notebook. Inside the notebook were fragments of his thoughts. Some were ramblings about betrayal. Others were names. Emily's, Sarah's, Hale's. But one line stood out. She thought she could outsmart him. She never saw the second man. The note rocked the investigation. Up until now, detectives believed Grayson had acted alone, under orders from Hale. But if a second man had been present the night Emily died, everything changed. Had someone else delivered the fatal blow? Had Grayson simply staged the scene? If so, who was the second man, and where was he now? Sarah Mitchell, still in custody, broke down when confronted with the notebook. She admitted she had seen another figure that night. She hadn't said anything before out of fear. He was tall, broad shoulders. I didn't see his face, but I heard him speak. He called Emily by her middle name, Rose. Only someone close to her would know that. Emily's middle name wasn't public. It wasn't in her files. Only family, friends, or a lover could have known. Detectives turned back to Daniel Reeves. Could the jealous ex-boyfriend have been the second man? At first, it seemed impossible. Daniel had already admitted to being at the house, but he swore he never went inside. His story had aligned with Sarah's. He heard voices, panicked, and ran. But when pressed about the name Rose, Daniel froze. That's what I used to call her, he whispered. It was just between us. The room went silent. Suddenly, the pieces fit differently. Grayson, the corrupt detective, had orchestrated the cover-up. Hale, the corporate giant, had ordered the silencing. But Daniel Reeves, the jealous ex with a broken alibi, may have been the second man inside the house. Could it be that Emily's death wasn't just a corporate hit, but crime of passion twisted into something larger? To flush Grayson out, investigators leaked false information to press, that Daniel Reeves was about to be arrested for Emily's murder. The hope was that Grayson, still in hiding, would surface to protect the corporate chain of command. If Hale was pulling strings, Grayson would need to ensure Daniel didn't talk. The gamble worked. 2 nights later, at a deserted gas station outside town, surveillance cameras caught Grayson meeting with none other than Daniel Reeves. The grainy surveillance footage of Detective Alan Grayson and Daniel Reeves vanishing into the night sent shockwaves through the investigation. 2 prime suspects. Both gone. Both connected to Emily Carter's death. But the confrontation raised a new, terrifying question. Were they allies or enemies? 3 days later, police dispatch received a frantic 911 call. A woman's voice, panicked, whispered, "They're here. They're fighting. Please send help." The line was cut off. The call was traced to an abandoned motel on the outskirts of Crestwood, a place long rumored to be a safe house for criminals. SWAT moved in. What they found inside would change everything. The room was trashed, furniture overturned, blood on the floor, a handgun still warm. Daniel Reeves was slumped against the wall, clutching a wound to his shoulder. Grayson was gone. As medics rushed Daniel to the hospital, detectives seized their chance. He was weak, but he was ready to talk. Daniel admitted he had been manipulated from the start. "Yes, I was at her house that night," he whispered. Pain etched across his face. "But I wasn't there to hurt her. I wanted to protect her." According to Daniel, Emily had called him earlier that week, saying she was afraid. She had uncovered something dangerous. She begged him to come by the night she died. When he arrived, she wasn't alone. Grayson was there. They were arguing, Daniel said. She told him she'd expose everything. He kept telling her it was too late. Daniel claimed he stepped in furious, demanding Grayson leave. But then, someone else entered the house. A tall man in a black coat. He didn't say much, but Daniel swore he saw him hand Grayson an envelope before walking out. By the time Daniel turned back, Emily was on the floor. Daniel swore he hadn't touched Emily. But detectives were skeptical until he revealed one chilling detail. She looked at me just before she went still. She whispered one word. "Hale." Richard Hale, board member of Ashford Global, the man whose name appeared in Grayson's financial records. If Emily had spoken his name with her last breath, it meant only one thing. She knew who was truly behind her murder. With Daniel in custody, attention turned back to Grayson. His disappearance suggested desperation, and desperation made him dangerous. Tips poured in, sightings at bus stations, diners, truck stops, but none panned out, until one trucker reported a man matching Grayson's description, hitching a ride toward Philadelphia. Authorities feared the worst. If Grayson reached a major city, he could vanish forever. Federal agents set up surveillance on known Ashford Global contacts in Philadelphia. Hours later, they spotted him, Grayson, disheveled, meeting with a suited man outside a private bank. The man was quickly identified. Not Hale himself, but his personal fixer. Agents moved in. Chaos erupted. Grayson pulled a weapon, firing wildly before being tackled to the ground. When dragged into custody, his final words were chilling. "You think you've won? You have no idea how deep this goes." Under interrogation, Grayson finally cracked. Yes, he had been on Ashford Global's payroll. Yes, Hale had ordered Emily silenced, but he insisted he hadn't been the one to strike the fatal blow. "She was alive when I left," he said. "It wasn't me. It was him." Hale wanted it personal. Grayson claimed Richard Hale himself had entered Emily's house that night, that Hale couldn't risk leaving it to chance. It was a bold claim, too bold to ignore. Armed with testimony from Grayson, financial records, and Emily's flash drive, investigators built their case. Within weeks, federal agents raided Ashford Global headquarters. Richard Hale was arrested in London, extradited, and charged with conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and obstruction of justice. The media firestorm was explosive. Headlines screamed, "Corporate giant falls after murder cover-up," and "Emily Carter's justice." But for Crestwood, the victory was bittersweet. In the end, Emily Carter had paid the ultimate price. She had uncovered corruption that reached across oceans, into the heart of power. And though she was gone, her files ensured the truth came out. Mark Renshaw, the obsessed neighbor, was sentenced for stalking but cleared of murder. Daniel Reeves, though guilty of lying, was released once his role was proven peripheral. Sarah Mitchell, complicit but coerced, received a reduced sentence in exchange for her testimony. And Grayson, once the town's trusted detective, was sentenced to life in prison. At Emily's memorial, her sister stood before the community and spoke words that silenced the crowd. She always says the truth, whispers before it shouts. And when it whispers, you have to listen before it's too late. Crestwood would never forget the whispers in the dark. Months later, as the town tried to heal, a sealed envelope arrived at the district attorney's office. No return address. Inside was a single flash drive. labeled in Emily's handwriting. Whispers 2. The files contained evidence against more corporations, more fraud, more names. The case wasn't over. Emily Carter's voice was still whispering from a grave. For months after the trial, Crestwood was a town split between grief and disbelief. The quaint neighborhood that once prided itself on safety was now forever stained by whispers of murder, betrayal, and corruption. Emily Carter's old house stood empty, curtains drawn, the mailbox collecting dust. Some neighbors swore they still heard faint sounds at night, like the echo of footsteps or a woman's voice calling for help. But the reality was clear. Emily was gone, and the town was left with scars no amount of time could heal. Richard Hale was locked away, but his empire still cast long shadows. Whispers of other powerful men and women tied to him filled newspaper headlines. Detective Grayson sat in a federal prison, refusing to testify further. His silence only fueled conspiracy theories. Had he taken a fall for someone even higher up? Daniel Reeves tried to rebuild his life, though Crestwood never forgave him. The man who hid the truth, the tabloids called him. Sarah Mitchell moved away, given a new identity under witness protection. The only one remembered with honor was Emily, but even her memory carried unease. 6 months after Hale's conviction, the district attorney's office received that mysterious envelope. Emily's flash drive, labeled Whispers 2. Inside were hundreds of encrypted files, evidence that suggested Hale was not acting alone. Multinational corporations, shell companies, politicians. It was a spider's web bigger than anyone imagined. The files raised a chilling question. Had Emily only uncovered the beginning of something much darker? One late evening, Special Agent Claire Donovan, the federal investigator who led the Hale case, sat alone in her office, scrolling through the drive. Her lamp flickered. Her phone buzzed once, then died. And then she heard it, a faint whisper, not from outside, not from the hall, but from the laptop speakers. Static, then a woman's voice. Soft, shaky, almost familiar. If you're hearing this, they know. And they're coming. The recording ended abruptly. No file, no trace. Donovan sat frozen. The voice, it sounded like Emily Carter. Rumors spread quickly. Some swore Emily had recorded messages before her death, hidden deep within the files. Others believed the whispers were something else entirely, a haunting that would never let Crestwood sleep peacefully again. Local children dared each other to walk past Emily's old house at night. Some claimed they saw lights flicker inside, though the house had no electricity. Others swore they heard a woman, crying softly through the walls. Whether ghost or conspiracy, one thing was certain. Emily Carter's story wasn't finished. In Crestwood, people thought the nightmare had ended when Richard Hale was led away in chains. But whispers don't fade. They linger. They spread. And somewhere in the dark, another secret waits to be uncovered. The question is, will anyone survive hearing it?